Okay, unfortunately our chair, Dr. John Fricker, was not able to make it today, so I'll just go ahead and run us through the agenda if that's all right with everyone. So the first item would be an approval of the meeting minutes from the January 19th meeting. So I would entertain a motion to approve those unless there are some corrections.
I move that we approve the minutes as submitted.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Jeremy and a second from Stu. All in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. All right, the motion carries. So our next item is the access permits. And normally we would start this by having our representative from NDOT kind of kick us off, but unfortunately they weren't able to have anyone come today, but they did send us this table, which I'm projecting on the screen here. So there haven't been any changes as of today. They are waiting on some forms for the Yeager Road approach, and then that permit will be approved there. And then they have this nice table of some of the previous reports from the last meeting that they've shown us. So, you know, they have 3 different permit applications, one for Klondike Middle School, one for Domino's, the aforementioned Yeager Road project, as well as 3 active permits, one for Anvil 38, the Speedway permit, and then the Newman Road roundabout. So going through those, the Klondike Middle School permit was they just applied for that, so that needs to be reviewed. For the Domino's permit, they are waiting on plans demonstrating sidewalk connectivity before they approve. And for Yeager Road, as mentioned, NDOT asks that they make changes to the southeast curb ramp so that can properly direct people in and out of there. So that's the holdup on that. And then for Anvil 38, NDOT right-of-way is complete. One of the 2 buildings is built, so I guess kind of still waiting on the second building there. Speedway, NDOT has not been to that location recently. As far as they know, work has not begun. This is from Jason Lewis. These are his notes. So as far as he knows, nothing for him to do there. And then the Newman Road roundabout is completed, but they do need to have an inspection for that. So that is what NDOT has to share with us. I'm obviously not the best person to answer any questions, but if anything comes up, I'm certainly happy to take some notes and forward that to our contacts at NDOT. So does anyone have anything that they think I should ask them in an email, or does this cover what you guys?
Looks accurate for the ones in the Lafayette side.
Okay, well then specifically this month we have kind of another permit that's maybe a little unusual. So this Slim Chickens permit, which is a restaurant. So Doug from our staff, I think, has some information to present about this. He's kind of looked into it, so Doug, I'll turn the floor over to you.
I turn on the button. Good afternoon, everyone. Bring the site plan up. Earlier this month, this was submitted to us, and we were asked to give a cursory review of it. Again, this is just a preliminary site plan for a new development. This is at 2901 Northwestern Avenue. I believe the building there is Christina's, and it's vacant at this moment. We did look at this internally, staff-wise, and 2 things. One is that we do have some information to pass along, but the reason why it is here is that we thought this would be a good committee to show this to and to get your opinions about this proposed preliminary site plan. The first thing we looked at, of course, we pulled out our ITE trip generation manuals, which the most recent one, the 11th edition, came out last September. And looking at the hair salon, basically that land use, we looked at three different things. We looked at weekday peak hour trips in the morning, weekday peak hour trips in the afternoon, and then trips on Saturday. Based on the square footage, the weekday peak hour trip in the morning would be 9 trips. The weekday peak hour in the evening would be 11, and then for Saturday, 37 trips. We also then looked at this proposed development in terms of a fast food restaurant with a drive-through. The ITE code was 934, and based on the square footage, peak hour during the weekday would be 105 trips. Peak hour on the weekday in the evening would be 78 trips. And then on Saturday, 1,448 trips. So as you see by looking at just what ITE has done through their studies, that the difference between the two land uses with this development, there's a significant increase. We also then started looking at it and looking at both the entrances. One would be the entrance that you would enter, and that would be on the far south side, and then the exit would be on the north side. The concern we had basically with the entrance on the south side is that it's nice to see that they have proposed to put 2 lanes where you could wait to go through the drive-through. But in our experiences, for example, for Chick-fil-A, that especially on the west side, even with their new building, they extend their drive-through basically through the parking lot. So a concern that we had is that if cars queue up in both lanes and there is still an additional vehicles that are wanting to go in, that queue would end up in that private drive, basically going possibly from Cumberland. And if that queue does back up on that private drive from Cumberland, well, there's only one drive in, so that's going to block traffic. It's just going to basically make that intersection or that specific spot congested. In looking at the other driveway, first off, it reminds me of the Mayo Mile driveway right by the Meeks Hotel, basically right at there where you're just west of the interstate, that you have that access drive that's right just adjacent to South Street, or what was State Road 26. And the congestion they have at that intersection. The proposal here is for 2 driveways out. Looking at an aerial photo at this private drive right at that intersection right there, there are 2 lanes to go out from the private drive. One would be a right and the other one would be a left. These 2 driveways, or these 2 ways to get out, what are they going to do? Are both of them going to be a dual right, which would cause some problems? But then that other one, probably the one to the far south, would be probably a dual right and then a dual left, or a left, because I assume that people probably will be wanting to go from the restaurant to Walmart. So then when you're thinking about that, say for example you have several cars waiting to either make a right or left from the private drive onto Cumberland, that could create blind spots for cars wanting to turn left and wanting to go on Walmart. So potential crash location right there, especially with those blind spots being created by additional vehicles. So after our assessment and our discussion, we thought that this would be a really good time for this group to look at this and to give your opinions as to what you think. And then we also have with us Gary. He's back here. He's the store manager for the Walmart store as well. So, please, if you'd like to give us your thoughts and concerns, questions and comments. Or would you like to come up and say something right now?
Thanks, Doug. I haven't really attended one of these, so sorry if I speak out of turn or anything like that, but I'm the store manager at Walmart, and my name is Gary Berry. Doug spoke very well about some of the numbers. All I can speak to is just the interactions that we see on a daily basis during the busy evening hours. It's almost impossible to, that drive, to make a left already. And with that turn lane on their exit strategy, if you try to make a left out of there, it's gonna create a massive cluster. The cars turning left already also, with them flying in off of, and I say flying, as they drive in off of the main road, they just whip right into Walmart right there, assume they can get straight through because there's no stop sign. That's got right away all the way up to the Walmart building. That it's likely a concern for accidents, as he said on that one. The other concern is just during their peak hours are going to be the same peak hours as Applebee's and Walmart. So the congestion going through that intersection that already blocks up past that current out is going to be expanded. And it's going to put a lot of pressure on the other entrance with the cars doing the exact same thing. So you're going to probably end up blocking off both entry drives to the Walmart property during the peak hours on Saturday or Friday evening, which is the top concern I have at the moment. So don't necessarily have not coming with a very good alternative plan, just concerned about it. Just heard about this recently, so didn't have a whole lot of time to do research or anything like that. So apologize for not having an alternative with me as I come up and talk about it. So thank you for your time. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yes. With the current flow of the parking lot, and that being the closest proximity to exiting towards the road, everybody chooses that way. I can tell you, I park right next to Christina's almost every day, and I exit out of what you're talking about. Now, trying to get traffic to do that, it's a lot easier. Now, talking to the semi drivers and the bus drivers, that's a blind corner to make that right. And especially during the summer with the foot traffic through there, they are very uncomfortable exiting with large vehicles through that other entrance because the pedestrians don't necessarily pause there as we'd like them to, and they run a high risk. Even with the bus traffic, it's a lot easier to turn out the other way. You could probably speak, City Bus could speak probably more professionally about that, but that's one of the pushbacks we get from our drivers on that. From the rest of it, we can try to reroute the parking lot, but we're directional aisles already, except for that one center that goes straight out. It's a both-way aisle. Most of our other ones are set up for single directional, which makes it kind of forces people out that main entrance right now. So that's kind of the way it's designed currently. I tried to look at that quickly. I got an email into my home office, but I have not got a response back due to timing and some stuff on that. So I couldn't necessarily speak to that. I know Doug and I were talking, it might be possible to talk to both businesses and see if we could exit into the Walmart parking lot to alleviate some of that pressure. I'm just not sure how feasible that is, and it's still going to put the same amount of drive. Everybody's still going to be using that private drive in one-way fashion. So with that, if we're talking 1,000 more people going through there, over the weekend, I'm not sure if that alleviates that. It might alleviate some of the congestion and the traffic accidents, but I'm not exactly sure where the property line ends in ownership on that. If we did come out the other way, I know it would involve a parking spot variance, which we already got one, and we're trying to work on one with City Bus to do some stuff on the other side already. So you're probably looking at another 25 to 50 parking spot reduction just to back up and alleviate those curb lines. And I know that's going to be, we don't necessarily use them very often. I'm just not sure how restricted we want to get. I mean, at some point we'll be breaching that 800 to 900 range when I think we're supposed to be over 1,000 already. So the more we do construction-wise over there, the more that becomes a concern. I just don't know what our options are on that piece of it.
Can you please turn your mic on when you talk? We can't hear you on the screen. One audience back there. Just press the button. We'll turn it on. It'll be
thought before Mitch left, there was some basic talk of, they were thinking of redoing some of Cumberland anyways, as they got ready to put in the new access road that was going to lead over to the development where Culver's and everything is now. And I thought one of the things that was in theory was they're going to extend the median down from the intersection with Sagamore west past this drive, so it would force all incoming traffic from Sagamore down to the west entrance. And that would make the private drive then just a right in, right out only, which would eliminate those left turns and the backup and things like that. So I don't know if the city had looked at, other than just in theory, they were thinking about it, or if any plans that ever progressed to actually look at implementing it or anything like that.
Yeah, I think Mitch was pretty serious about that plan.
There was some discussion on that. I'm not aware. Of course, I'm also coming up to speed on different topics right now, this being one. I don't see any formal plans on that developing, but it was in discussion.
Yeah, as I recall, he had, even before the Popeyes issue came up, he had, that was in their long-range plan, was that Cumberland improvement, and because there's problems now,
Absolutely.
obviously.
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about that, but it sounds like it would be beneficial to alleviate it. Both those drives do the exact same thing, so forcing one to go one way and one to go the other would be possibly ideal.
Yeah, because it's not unusual traffic flow the way it is now coming in off of Sagamore that will back up on Cumberland all the way up to the intersection of Sagamore for people trying to make that left turn to get into that first entrance of Walmart there. So they were looking at a way to alleviate that and push traffic more to the west, just so the line wouldn't be backing into the Sagamore intersection. Because I know NDOT is looking at theorizing plans too to upgrade the intersection and traffic flow along the whole Sagamore corridor too, so.
Well, that's definitely a problem right there, right now, with the Walmart and the Applebee's and the proximity to the light and all that. It's pretty bad.
I'll add too, as a user of the bike path, that through there, the bikers and pedestrians do serve a significant hazard as they come through with the amount of traffic that's coming and going currently. So adding more will obviously increase that too.
The other thing I think there's a bus stop right on that intersection on their exit. We might have to look at that right there, because that bus, if it stops and pauses, you can't actually exit that building at all during that duration of that bus stop. So I'm not sure how much they use that or not right now, but that is right on that corner.
It's not a highly used stop, but we do get some traffic through there. When I looked at the arrangement, Doug and I brought to my attention on this proposed layout that I definitely, from a city bus perspective, concerned about the ingress and egress of the traffic into that location. As was mentioned, our operators do prefer to exit out of that entrance without a stoplight being down at the other entrance, and some of the obstructions and being right on the curve and everything at the other location. I think if there's a longer, range plan, or if you maybe short range plan that would address that curbing and or center median to affect the traffic flow, that would be beneficial. But having those cars in there and exit right out of that parking lot in that manner, it's already a busy area for our operators, and then especially as Gary mentioned as well, the oncoming traffic does currently not stop coming into their parking lot, so that can tend to be an issue as well. So if you potentially look at rotating the site plan, what would that mean for oncoming traffic that is looking to make a left to get into the restaurant, and figure out. I don't know if it's feasible to put because there is a fairly decent distance there, if it's feasible to put a stop sign in at that location, but it's depending upon the amount of traffic they truly generate, could be problematic.
Where do we stand in this? I mean, obviously, there's been no traffic impact, no anything. Where do we? Is this just a get a feeling kind of plat, or? Where are we?
Yeah, basically what we were asked to do is to provide input in terms of this preliminary site plan. Basically, that's what the discussion has been right now in terms of, the issues that have been discussed in terms of both driveways and with Cumberland, with the trail. We will report back to the person who had requested, our comments, and then also the comments that were made during our discussion here this afternoon. Basically, we wanted to present it to you to see what you thought and what you feel about this site plan. So,
Would they, they'd have to do impact study and all that, but it's already with that existing business there, would they be required to participate in some like half-width type improvements if we got into that?
for Cumberland, or
Yeah.
for Cumberland, you already have the existing trail there. I do not know offhand
So it wouldn't, I'm thinking
what
about
the
that.
subdivision ordinance would require, the Thoroughfare plan would require for both, not only Cumberland, but also Sagamore Parkway. But in essence, the big change here is, looking at what to do with the private drive, both to the west, and then if they reorient it to the south, in terms of if that would be a better option, is to put two driveways. And then you get into the issue of basically redesigning that section of the Walmart parking lot. So,
well, on the potential Walmart or Cumberland project and which it sounds like you got NDOT at the light, the city with their Cumberland project, Walmart obviously may own this whole thing. So it sounds like those players have a ways to go. I don't know. You
Yeah,
don't want to
they-
be discouraging because it's a prime corner and it's dead. But at the same time, it's a pretty long path, right? You need to, but all those players need to be involved, because as is, like I say, I think maybe the Chick-fil-A is a little bit beyond, because I don't believe Chick-fil-A, by their market and the fact that they have one store and they create that huge demand at a location. I don't know, I visualize, if this is more like a Kentucky Fried Chicken, somewhere between Chick-fil-A and Kentucky Fried Chicken, you're probably not going to have that kind of backup. But still, that's kind of an unworkable situation that they're putting that. So, that's my feeling.
well, again, go ahead.
I'm just wondering if some sight distance improvements would be in order to, looking at the vegetation, it's not like it's high-value vegetation at both of those drives.
Okay.
Cumberland, so that would help some people if they're, go to that west drive, to not be afraid of the running into some pedestrian on the trail or anything.
Yeah, I think the police department definitely would be in favor of increasing the sight lines there.
Okay.
More trying to get the Parks Department to get some of the trees cut back.
Yeah.
Because I think really it's a drainage pond right there along the inside of where all those trees are, so.
So that could be something could be looked at here, sometime this spring or something? Okay.
Is that, one last question,
Yeah.
the new drive onto Cumberland where the Culvers and now the chicken Popeyes is going to be, is that a condition of the development back there? Is that a done deal that road's going to come through to Cumberland?
It is my understanding that that road it will be
So
constructed.
that's going to happen?
Yes.
And so all the rest of this needs to fall into place. Something else has got to happen.
Well, Cumberland, the improvements to this is programmed in the TIP, but it's one of those projects that are programmed further out as, we know we need to do something, but yet we're not to the phase or to that part where we're ready to actually start it. So,
Yeah. Kind of get the feeling between this and the Popeyes Division Drive that might be pushing this up a bit. Thought.
Any other comments or questions you'd like to add? I do appreciate all of your thoughts and what you have added so far, and that will be passed along.
Push comes to shove, we blame it on the previous city engineer.
I guess I'd be curious to see what their site plan would look like and the traffic study would look like if they were to rotate the whole thing 90 degrees. To exit and enter off Walmart's parking lot only instead of just that entrance drive.
We can pass that along as well. Well, great. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate your input.
So just one quick thing on this. So like Doug said, he's going to kind of gather up the comments and send them along as requested. But this is something that, we might want to continue to keep tabs on in the future as it gets a little farther along. And in the past, what we've done when it's gotten closer to the time when we got to actually issue an access permit is this committee will make a formal recommendation to NDOT with some of our concerns about sites. So that might be something that's in the cards for the future. Again, it's a little too early for that now since this is a preliminary site plan, but I just wanted to mention that so that we're all aware of what might be coming. Okay, so looks like that wraps up this item. So our next item is an amendment to the FY 2022-2026 TIP. So this is for the countywide bridge inspection program. So Doug's going to come up and handle that one also.
Again, good afternoon. This is a pretty simple, easy, straightforward amendment to the TIP requested by the County Highway Department. And if you remember in previous TIPs and even in the current one, the county actually has a bridge inspection program. Of course, all bridges are required to be inspected on an annual basis. The county does receive federal funds to do that. The current project ends this fiscal year in 2022, and this is the new project, which is for 2023, 24, and 25. The staff report shows the amount of federal funds and local funds and also the total cost for each year. Again, this is pretty simple, easy, straightforward requirement to do this. Staff is recommending approval to the policy board. Any questions or comments? You have any, Stu, you'd like to add?
I guess just a little bit of a warning. These numbers, NDOT pushed for timing purposes to get this in place. Excuse me. But there's been quite a delay in all the counties getting contracts approved and in place. We just yesterday got our actual final contract approval, so it's very, very, very close to this. But
Okay.
there'll probably be some fine tuning down the line.
Okay, we can easily do that. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? So we'll need a vote for that recommendation to the policy board, please.
I propose that we fund the county bridge inventory.
Second.
All right, well, sounds like there's no further discussion, so we have a motion and a second. So we'll go ahead and take a vote. So all in favor, approve by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. All right, the motion carries. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so our next item would be the item that I think we're all excited for, which is we have a new source of funding. So we thought that because we have some new funding, we'd like to go ahead and figure out where the best place to program that is. So Doug put together this nice spreadsheet to kind of walk us through where we would need to allocate some of this funding. So Doug, am I on the right tab on the spreadsheet here?
Go down a pinch, or up a pinch. Yeah. Go updated federal funds.
There we go.
No, that's not it. Where'd it go? Okay. I thought I sent you the right one, but maybe I did not. Well, anyway, go back to the proposed, well, we'll start with this. So, anyway, in your packet is the correct spreadsheet. Earlier this month, when we received the monthly obligation report from NDOT, they had an additional line item and highlighted in yellow. And when we started looking at it, asking more information about it, we were told that due to the new Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, that our area or MPO would receive a little over $1 million a year. So for this year, right now, they have us as penciled in as receiving an additional $1,020,799. The interesting part about this is in our TIP, or like this year and previous years, all of our federal funds must be obligated either sometime in April, and for this year it's at the end of April. Because we are receiving this information at this late stage of the game, we have until September 25th to obligate these funds. So there's no pressure at the moment to obligate these in the next 2 months. So we do have some time to actually do something with these funds. In the staff report, there you go, you found it, I'm sorry. We are, of course, only doing this for fiscal year 2022. These funds that we are receiving will be finalized sometime later this month, and then we are actually allowed to obligate it beginning March 1st. So the good news is that we can always use additional federal funds. Looking at the 2022 project list, we have several projects that will be using our federal funds. One, of course, is the Sagamore Parkway Trail. The other is Morehouse Road, specifically the right-of-way phase, Soldiers Home Road project for preliminary engineering. And of course, the Lindbergh Road just showed up because they needed a pinch of additional funds, which Stu moved from the right-of-way phase for Morehouse to the construction phase of Lindbergh. So if you would scroll down a little bit, we started looking at what are the needs of these projects. If you can go down a little bit more. On the bottom of the page, here's a summary here. For the construction phase of Sagamore Parkway, right now there's just a little over $3 million allocated to the project. The estimated need you have, or you see, construction, engineering, construction, both the total cost and what the 80% amount would be. And then all said and done, total, the estimated amount now needed for both those two parts is a little over $3.6 million. So we're short $640,000. The Morehouse Road project, looking at that, we have almost $700,000 in STBG funds allocated and over $200,000 in TA funds. So we almost have, well, actually we did obligate some for right-of-way services. So again, we're just under $700,000 for actual purchasing the property. The estimated need right now for right-of-way for purchase is $1.2 million. At the 80% is $960,000. So we have a shortfall of $262,675. So both projects are needing additional federal funds to fully fund it at the 80-20%. So what I'd like to do here is basically what we have done last year in developing the TIP, not only in terms of developing the TIP, but then also in terms of looking at the additional funds we received there through basically the Coronavirus Act, and that the process today we'd like to go through is actually allocating those funds making a recommendation, and then that recommendation would be then taken to the policy board. So in looking at this, on the second page, I put together a list of our performance measures that we look at. Basically, both projects are equally matched. There is, of course, no driveways for the trail, but the only really difference is how far is the project advanced. One, the trail is the construction phase, and two, Morehouse Road is in the right-of-way phase. And in terms of safety performance measures, you know, looking at, yes, we're either building a new facility or we're actually reconstructing it. So we see, for example, that this will be a positive impact, reduce fatalities, and also serious injuries. So we basically think that both of these are equally important in addressing the safety performance measures and reducing the crashes, especially the serious ones. And then for information purposes only, we did throw in information about the projects that are programmed for fiscal year 2023. Mccutcheon Pedestrian Safety Project, that is on a November letting. Yeager Road Project, October letting. South 9th Street, we do receive additional information, so that probably will change. And then Soldiers Home Road, the preliminary engineering is underway, but additional federal funds will be needed for that phase because when we developed the TIP last year, we split that into two parts. So that kind of gives you an idea of how we looked at the projects. Now looking at the funding, total-wise, if we fully fund these projects at 80%, it's a little over $900,000. So we do have a cushion or budget that we can do with whatever we would like. In looking at this, we have actually made a recommendation, and this is, again, it's just our recommendation. It's up to the committee here to make the decision and how to allocate these funds, is that our recommendation is to basically fully fund both the construction and right-of-way phase as the estimates that we have at the current time. And with the balance of federal funds that we have, is that first off, if the amount does change, whether it goes up or down, especially if it goes down, that amount of reduction will come out of that additional funding. But thinking ahead in terms of April bid letting, that what we've heard and what we've presented here recently is that all the bids are coming in. So what we would like to do is, with that recommendation, that if the bids do come in higher than what is estimated, actually allocate these additional funds, whatever they will need, up to that amount for the construction phase. So that's our allocation, or our recommendation is how to allocate the funds. So the committee can, you know, accept or say that's a good plan, let's go with that, or come up with a different type of allocation. So, questions or comments, or how else can I get the discussion started?
Question.
Yes.
So this is basically $1 million in '22.
Correct.
With the extended date out to September.
Correct.
Then in '23, same.
Yes, we will receive this amount for fiscal year 23, and then bonus 24, 25, and 26.
Same amount.
The same amount.
Okay.
So we will probably later this year look at fiscal year 23, and then when we develop the new TIP, surprisingly, we'll be starting that later this year, look at 24, 25, and 26.
With the extra million. And then in 23 through 26, we lose that September grace, right? We're back to the April deadline?
That is correct.
Okay. That was just a question, how we're going for it, if they were going to be nice every year or just.
Well, that would be nice, but unfortunately, this is the only time for this.
And there's no there's no carryover like we used to do with this particular money, any special thing like that. You know, we used to be able to.
Correct. We are not allowed to carry this over to 23, It's just we get this narrow window in July, August, and September to allocate it.
I just wondered if, since it's kind of like found money, if they'd let us carry it, but that's fine.
Well, if you have a magical wand and can ask that, that would be great.
Does this require the 20% match to spend, or is it just a straight-out $1 million grant?
Well, typically, these projects are funded at 80/20. But what we unfortunately have found out is that with project costs increasing, they're typically funded at like 75/25, so that more local funds are being used to actually carry out these projects. So these additional funds are a bonus so that we can actually go back to an 80/20 match.
The answer is the 80/20 is a cap, an STVG cap, and 90/10 on a safety.
Okay.
But, like I said, Jaeger right now is at 70/30, so. I like the plan.
Okay, well, thank you. Would that be a recommendation to go with it?
I would, yeah, I think West Lafayette would probably second me. I would move that we present, basically, we're voting for you to present this as our recommendation to Policy Board, right?
Yes, correct.
That's my motion.
Thank you.
I second.
All right, well, it looks like there's no further discussion, so we do have a motion and a second. So in that case, all in favor of recommending this funding allocation as proposed by Doug and Stu, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, thank you very much. The motion carries.
Great, thank you.
All right, so going on to kind of our next agenda item, we're into the APC Progress Report section. So the next two items are just kind of verbal updates. The first one being an update on the 2050 MTP. So we had a meeting with INDOT where we tried to kind of work to determine what sorts of projects are going to need to be in the financially constrained project list in the TIP. I was kind of hoping that we would have a representative from INDOT here today so we could continue that conversation a little bit. Unfortunately, INDOT wasn't able to make it to this meeting, but we are working with them to try to figure out what sorts of projects need to be in there. And we have also been in communication with the local government engineers. They've been very helpful in giving us some project estimates. So we're kind of at the phase now where we really need to get something established with INDOT and kind of get them on board before we can move forward too much more. So I do thank the local government engineers for the work they've been doing on this, and there might be a little more depending on what we hear from INDOT. They've kind of expressed an interest in philosophically changing how we do things a little bit in terms of how we've done them in the past versus how they want us to do that for this plan, but they've also been a little bit vague on the specifics of that. So we're all kind of trying to work through it together. I'm sorry that that's not a very specific update, but that's the best update that I have. I have been working with some of our people at both district and central office on this. So we're going to continue to try to plow through this and get that finalized so that we can, make a few last requests of you as local government engineers in terms of stuff for the project lists, which, as you know, is an important part of the TIP. Well, yes, it is an important part of the TIP, but it's also an important part of the MTP, which is what we're doing this for. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at with that. And we're also trying to adjust our available funding estimate for the financially constrained element of that project list. So I think I have something together for that. I need to run that by Doug to see what his thoughts are on that. So we're getting things in order, and not much for this committee to do now, but be on the lookout for something in the future. So that's the update on where we're at with the MTP. Are there any questions on that? Okay, so then the next item would be the Thoroughfare plan update. So we are almost done with going through kind of a list that some people in the development community had sent us. We put together a rough draft of the Thoroughfare plan, and they had some comments on it. So kind of our next step was to go through that list and kind of work through some of those things with them. Kind of the last item on that list is an update from City Bus. So we did have a meeting with City Bus. Randy and Tanya were there, and we kind of talked to them about what we'd like to see about getting a policy in the Thoroughfare plan for some transit amenities, and when that would be appropriate to require that of the developer. So I put together a draft of that section. This is a pretty brief section, and I did send it along to City Bus for comment. And once I hear back from them on that, then we will send it back to the development community. We've kind of established a little bit of a working group, and they will give us their thoughts on that. I suspect they won't have too many comments. And then at that point, we'll have kind of a good draft complete. We'll kind of send it around to our staff for some last comments. And then hopefully we're on the path to adoption of a new Thoroughfare plan. So I know it's been kind of a long process, and I've coordinated with a lot of you on this, so I just want to thank you for that, for all the time you've put into this to helping us get this going. And hopefully we're pretty close to the finish line. Are there any questions on that? Okay, well, hearing none, our next item is the 2022 traffic count locations. So we're going to steal Aria out of the back to kind of give us a rundown about that.
All right. So every year we do traffic counts in Lafayette, West Lafayette, and also the county. Our typical traffic count program is a 3-year cycle, so we'll take the same counts every 3 years. So this year in 2022, we're taking similar counts to we did in 2019. The last 2 years, we took very different counts to our usual cycle because we were looking at some VMT, vehicle miles traveled modeling. So we set up totally different counts to what we would usually do. But this year, we are back on the cycle, and I have set up, I think, 50 counts in West Lafayette and 90 in Lafayette, primarily based on those 2019 stations. So the maps here show you where specifically those counts are. And I think there's a spreadsheet as well that shows the list of all of them, specifically the intersections or rows that they're on. So did anybody have any comments, suggestions, changes? We can change where we set these out for, some number of the stations each year if you want to get details or info on upcoming projects. But otherwise, we just stick to our usual cycles.
I do have a comment on one in West Lafayette on Purdue's campus.
Okay.
Station 4369 on 3rd Street between Waldron and Russell. That's now closed to vehicle traffic. That's all pedestrian way.
Okay, yes, we will change that station then. Thank you. That is good to know. Yeah, if there's any construction plans you have that will be closing roads or other things we should know about, that's good to know as well. And then I guess the other thing I want to mention is that the stations are set up to avoid the NDOT coverage counts. NDOT takes their own counts on a lot of the larger roads, so we do not count on Northwestern or Sagamore Parkway or 52 unless there's some detailed info you want for that year. And NDOT's not counting that year, so. Anyway, if you don't have any questions at the meeting, you can feel free to email me after the meeting as well. And I'm hoping to get these sent out to each department, I think, probably before March, kind of at the end of February here, to get them set up for this year. So that's it for me, I think.
Aria, so if we're restarting the cycle, does that mean that we are at a point where we do have vehicle miles traveled calculations?
Doug?
I don't know anything about that, so
Oh, okay.
I don't know what's going on with that project.
So the answer is no.
Okay.
Yes, we will get all that collated and info for you eventually here. Any other questions? No? All right, thank you.
All right, well, yeah, we'll work on some of that data for you, Jeremy, and see if we can kind of get it all together. So then our next item would be the federal funding obligations. So Doug?
Again, this is our monthly time where we show or tell you how we stand on our obligations for federal funds. The top part of the list is information, comes directly from NDOT. As you can see, it has the Lindbergh Road project added in terms of the $35,000 and change. Again, that was for an advice of change where the Lindbergh Road needed some additional federal funds, and that came from Stu's Morehouse Road project, so it's just a switch between two county projects. And below that, we have some additional funds that are additional information that generally shows up. One is that it's the COVID funds. They don't track it in our spreadsheet, but we track it. And basically, that is pretty much already obligated. There is a balance. If you look on the bottom table, there's a $200 balance that is still shown. We actually, last Friday, processed a tip modification to move that $200 from the preliminary engineering phase to the construction phase. I know it's not much, but we'd rather go ahead and use it instead of losing it. So it's just trying to little bookkeeping thing. So that will now balance out to zero when construction occurs. Looking further down, there was a need to actually transfer $20,774 from our safety funds to what we call STBG funds. That was processed on January 26th. So we're pretty much all good to go, except for two things. One is, of course, the letting for Sagamore Parkway Trail, which is on an April letting. We are good to go on that. I actually reached out to the NDOT project manager, and she said right now everything's, there's a green light for that. So we can at least sleep or rest easy for now. The other one is the Morehouse Road right-of-way phase, and Stu and I had a very good discussion this morning about the project, and we are going to submit the FEMA's request early next week. So once we get that done, there will be only the letting for the Sagamore Parkway Trail, and I think I've got my fingers crossed. We will then have successfully obligated all of our federal funds before the end of April deadline. Questions or comments? Okay, thank you.
All right, so then our next item would be the 18-month letting list.
Yeah, I'll go through this fairly quickly. The good news in terms of for the I-65 project is on the January bid letting. If you look down below, it says bids rejected, none below engineering estimate. That is an error, so please erase that. The project was actually awarded to Walsh Construction for the $99.415 million. And as you can see, the estimated completion date is May 30th, 2025. So it's going to be under construction for quite a while. So the good news is that that project will be moving forward. Looking back to the first page, the projects that are on a February bid letting, that looks good to go. There were basically 3 projects on State Road 38. The one that moved, that you don't see a S or NL or whatever, Project 16, that was in the February bid letting. And those 3 projects, it appears to be, will be let for construction. There were 2 bids submitted. Low bid Reith Riley at $12.36 million, which is just under the engineer's estimate of $12,448,138. Looking at the district-wide bridge maintenance project, again, Reith Riley was the low bidder, and it was fairly close, roughly $15,000 difference between the engineer's estimate and their bid. So that looks like a good to go. And then finally, the Project 17, again, the low bidder did successfully have a bid that was under the engineer's estimate. Some rather interesting, step back for a moment for the bids in January. As we reported last month, there were a lot of contracts that were just, over the engineer's estimate and rejected or had no bids. Well, for the January bid letting, looking at the information even today, of all the contracts, there were 10 that were rejected or had no bid, so it's still a large number, which is atypical. There was one trail project, and it was in Lake County. The engineer's estimate was a little over $8,000. There were 3 bidders, which is good news on that. The low bidder was just under the engineer's estimate, but the other 2 bidders were roughly $90,000 more. So I'm not sure if you can use that to gauge what will happen in April, but just a piece of information. Looking at the first page again, sorry to jump back and forth. For the March 9th letting, that is still a good to go for Project 18 and 20. Project 19, couldn't find that anywhere, but did find out that that project has been moved, and it's moved out of the 18-month letting list, and it's on a April 2023 bid letting. So looking, of course, at Project 21, we all know that has been moved now to the April bid letting. And on page 2, all of the projects are still moving forward and are on the same bid letting as they have been in the past months. Comments or questions? Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Doug. So our next item is the quarterly project tracking reports. So we'll go ahead and get started with the county's reports here. So the first project is the Klondike Road project. So our kind of questions on this were we were wanting to know if some of these cost increases that we noted were due to change orders, and if there were any further changes anticipated, and also just a question if a request to close out this project has been submitted. So Stu, could you give us an update on the status of the Klondike project?
Yeah, this is the one that was, it's been in limbo for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly a contractor has been appealing extension costs, it's gone all the way through to the very tippy top of PennDOT. And finally, we settled on a number locally funded, and that, we got a request not too long ago to move that cash, NOTs in as soon as that dollar value settles out, we won't see this again next time.
All right, great. Thank you for that update. Glad to hear that things are progressing. A little unfortunate that it had to go the hard way, but hey, sometimes that's how projects go, I guess, right? Okay, so our next project is the Lindbergh Road project. So we just wanted to know if there were any outstanding purchase orders or change orders for this project.
There was a final balance and change order, I believe it's the same, kind of in the same boat where we've gotten the bill. It will continue to show up, however, on the course of bill for May,
right, so that one's a little behind Klondike, but that's okay. Good to know the status, and again, I think the main thing is that it's moving forward is really the key. So thank you for that update, Stu. So then the next project is the North 9th Street Road Bridge Project. So we were just wondering when we anticipated consultant selection to be complete for this project. No consultant was listed in the report we got.
Since that report was out, the consultant contract has been approved and they're in place now. So we're having a kickoff meeting Friday. Sorry. Do I go all the way back to the beginning? No. We'll start where we were. So that the contract has been approved, executed, and the funding, the FEMA's went through. We got our notice to proceed with design. We've issued it to the engineering consultant, and we have our kickoff meeting Friday.
And then the other kind of thing was, we did note that the report still shows 0% completion for both the environmental report and right-of-way. With the consultant selection kind of complete, do you think you guys will still be able to meet those milestones at the dates listed, or are those going to have to move back? Because that was supposed to be, environmental report is listed as April of this year, and right-of-way is June of.
Right. Yeah,
May.
part of the meeting Friday, we're going to go back through the schedule and adjust. There's quite a bit of play there in that it's, this is showing on the report, it's 25, I believe, construction, so, and it's a superstructure replacement, so. We'll adjust the calendar, but it shouldn't adjust lettings.
Okay, that makes sense. Got it. Thank you. So we'll look for those adjustments in the next quarterly report. So our next project is River Road at 500 North. So we did not have any particular comments about this. Stu, is there anything additional that you needed to let us know about this that has transpired since you filed the report?
No, it's on track. The utilities are pretty much out of the way. We'll start construction again as soon as weather permits.
All right, very good. So the next project then would be Morehouse Road. So this, first we got phase one, which we didn't have any comments about phase one or phase two. We've recently split those out into two separate reports, so we've been getting both of those. So is there anything you needed to add about that? I mean, I know we had some discussion earlier today about some of the funding for this project, but in terms of the quarterly reports, Stu, is there anything we need to add to either of these projects?
No, the reports are pretty much there. And Doug, we're working on different trade deals to make phase two a little happier. Phase one is happy, well, phase one is too happy. It's $700,000 too happy. And phase two is unhappy, so we're gonna have to make a trade.
Right, so we'll continue to monitor those financial issues, and we know this project still has a little bit before it's going to get ramped up, so we got some time on this one too, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah.
For the CN money, yeah.
Okay, so that takes care of those two projects. So we'll move on to Jaeger Road. So for this one, so Stu did note for us that purchases have been initialized on the 6 parcels for the right-of-way. And they are anticipating the last parcel to be secured very soon, by the 22nd of this month. And then he notes some change of estimates to funding, so that switched some of the numbers around that we see highlighted there. So we didn't have any comments on that. Are there any updates further you need to give us on that, Stu, that's changed since this has been filed? Are we still on track to hit that estimate for the right-of-way?
We're still on track for the right-of-way. Nobody, I think there'll be some monies back and forth, but we're on track for closure. There's not that many parcels. And we did move the CE money into CN just because it's a shortfall.
All right, great, thank you. So then our next project would be the Mccutcheon Pedestrian Safety Project. So again, right-of-way seems to be moving along on this. 8 parcels have complete appraisal. Looks like BFNS has secured a right-of-way company to assist with that. Some environmental updates. The WOTUS report was completed. Looks like they got some comments back, so that's almost done. Now, when this report was filed, that hadn't been approved yet, but it was anticipated to be approved last month. So did that environmental report go through with the AI?
I believe it came through this week. It went to the wrong district. They found it.
Okay. So it looks like at least by the time we get the next quarterly report filed, that'll be back up to 100%, and everything should be resolved with that. Okay, good. And then there was also an issue with some of the utilities. Looks like someone at MetroNet left the company, causing you guys to have some problems communicating with them. Is that still moving forward okay, or do you anticipate further holdups?
Yeah, I did not bring it with me, but I got an update the other day on the utilities. We're catching up.
All right, so it sounds like that's moving, so that's good. Always like to hear that, so thank you for that update, Stu. Okay, so our next project would be Bridge 64, and then we also do have the companion project, Bridge 65.
Yep.
So we didn't necessarily have too many comments on this. Looks like things are progressing. The environmental report took a substantial jump in how much of that was completed, so it looks like that should be on track. There were a few modifications in dates to kind of reflect a new schedule update, so we did note that, which was included in the report. So we didn't have any questions per se. Are there any updates you need to give us on either of these two projects, Stu?
I think you probably noted they end up moved fiscal years on it. So we picked up another 6 months to 7 months because of their short funding. So that gives us that much more slack on the schedule.
Right. Yep. Okay, good. So the next project is bridge number 527. So for this one, we noted that the report still shows 0% complete for both the Stage 2 design environmental report milestones. Do you anticipate these milestones being able to be met by the scheduled times? That would be June and September.
We just got, that's the one we just got, right? The plans on 527. Yeah, we're on track.
Okay, good. Glad to hear that. That's moving along. So then our next project is the county bridge inspections. So we did not receive a report from the last quarter, which would have been the very end of the previous cycle's contract. So has everything been closed out for the previous bridge inspection program? I know we just did the new one earlier today, but.
Right, the 2A done? I don't think so. No. There's still the interim left on the old contract that will lap, and then this comes into the next cycle.
Okay, so still trying to kind of get that wraparound money figured out. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's fine. We understand that this is kind of an ongoing item, and that tends to happen with this sort of thing. So, but
Yeah.
just wanted to double check.
Yeah, they lapped that contract by about 6 months, so.
Okay, so that is everything for the county. So moving on next to the city of Lafayette's projects. So for Twickenham, looks like this is going to be the last report that we get for this. Lafayette did receive final acceptance on November 1st from NDOT, and there's one final claim to be closed out in terms of the POs for the PE and the CE. So it looks like everything went pretty well with that. Is there anything you needed to add, Jeremy?
Nope, that's correct.
All right. So then our next project would be the Park East Boulevard extension. So for this project, substantial completion was reached. A punch list has been generated and is being addressed by the contractor. So at the time of the filing of this report, the final inspection had been scheduled and the NOT was in the process of being submitted. So again, looks like this one's not quite as far along as the previous one, but just about to the finish line. So anything you need to add on that, Jeremy?
Nope, this is right.
All right, so our next project will be the Concord Road Trail Lighting Project. So for this one, all the POs have been closed out. So this will also be the final time this will be showing up in the quarterly report. So again, looks like another project that Lafayette was able to wrap up. So anything you need to add, Jeremy?
Nope.
So then our last project for Lafayette is the South 9th Street project. So this one's a lot earlier along in the life cycle. So utility coordination is underway. Environmental studies have started. Looks like you guys are looking into the Norma Jean subdivision, see if it's a historic post-war neighborhood. So kind of trying to sort out that issue, as well as look at the preliminary field check, and that may adjust some of these dates, but this project's still pretty far out, so I think we have some flex with the schedule, so we'll just kind of keep some tabs on this, and when you guys get some more information, that'll update the schedule, I think.
Yes, that's correct.
All right, very good. So yeah, it looks like everything's on track for that project as well, and we'll keep tabs on it and figure out what to do if anything comes up. Okay, so moving on to West Lafayette. So for Soldiers Home Road, we noted that some of the dates have been adjusted. This has kind of been a work in progress to figure out the exact schedule for this project. So looks like we were able to get at least most of those milestone dates nailed down. So we were glad to see that. Do you have anything that you needed to add to that, Jeffrey?
Nothing right now.
Thank you. So we'll continue to kind of watch for that and see what happens and if any further changes are needed. And you guys have our contact information if something changes and we need to work on any amendments and such. So please feel free to reach out. So then the last project is the Sagamore Parkway Trail project. So as Doug mentioned earlier, it looks like everything is on track for the April letting. So just wanted to take this opportunity to kind of thank everybody for their work in pushing that over the finish line. I know that previous city engineer Mitch, it's kind of one of the last things he was doing was trying to desperately drag this across the finish line. And I know that there was some work between NDOT and consultants, and Doug spent a lot of time following up with NDOT's project manager on this. So we think we're good to go, and like we talked about earlier, we'll be looking at using some of that funding potentially to help get you guys closer to the 80-20 match on this project, depending on where the bids come in. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that. And if anything comes up with the April letting, I guess we can't really do much to address that until we see some numbers. But we will be keeping a close eye on that. We understand that this project is coming right up against the end of the fiscal year, and we want to make sure we can get it in. So we are continuing to monitor this, and I think that's kind of where we are with that. So any other updates that we need to know about this project that I didn't include in my notes here?
None that I'm aware of, no. Thank you for asking, though.
All right, well, that should wrap up the quarterly progress tracking. So that is kind of the last item we have officially listed on our agenda. We do, of course, have a space for other business and citizen comments. So our next agenda item would be other business. Is there any other business that anyone on the committee would like to bring up for discussion this afternoon? All right, hearing none, we will move on to the citizen comments. So since this meeting is in person, we are only taking in-person comments. So is there anyone out in the audience who would like to bring any comments as a citizen? I will take that as a no. So then that brings us to our last item. So our next meeting is going to be March 16th, 2022. And at this time, I would take a motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right, thank you. Got a
Second.
motion and a second. All right, so all in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, the motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you for your time.